If you enter the US with non-immigrant intent, with the intent to just visit, and then you subsequently, after entering, you change your mind and you decide, you know what, I actually want to live here now. I met someone, they're a US citizen, we want to get married, I want to become a permanent resident here. You can do that. Is it still legal to marry a US citizen and apply for adjustment of status if you enter the US as a tourist? This is a question that someone asked me recently, and actually it's not a bad question. People have been asking me some variation of this. Typically, like, can people still get green cards? Is immigration still processing green cards? Is everyone getting deported? All variations of the same question, which is, should I apply for my green card right now? Or is it like a really bad idea because the Trump administration has gone crazy and a little too far with all of this immigration stuff? The answer is, you can still get a green card if you entered the US as a tourist, but there's a couple things you need to consider. First of all, if your application gets denied, you're gonna end up in deportation proceedings. When you enter as a tourist, you're representing to the customs officers that you have non-immigrant intent. Non-immigrant intent means you don't plan to permanently live in the US. If you enter the US with non-immigrant intent, with the intent to just visit, and then you subsequently, after entering, you change your mind and you decide, you know what, I actually want to live here now. I met someone, they're a US citizen, we want to get married, I want to become a permanent resident here. You can do that. That process is legal. It's called adjustment of status. The problems arise when those applications get denied, because the moment you apply for adjustment of status, you no longer have the requisite non-immigrant intent to be on a valid tourist visa anymore. So the moment you apply, you're pretty much going to be out of your tourist status and you're going to change to adjustment of status pending. So you'll be lawfully present, or PRUCAL, like presently residing under color of law, some version of being lawfully present. It's kind of a gray area while your adjustment of status application is pending. But if it gets denied, now you're fully deportable because you entered as a tourist, and you should expect a notice to appear in immigration court, which, beyond the scope of this video, is usually fixable unless you really messed it up, but it's going to be very expensive to deal with now, and definitely something you would like to avoid if possible. Another thing that you really want to consider when you enter as a tourist is your unlawful presence. If you enter with a full tourist visa, a B1, B2 visa that's in your passport, or a border crossing card, which is less common, you can typically enter the US for up to 180 days continuously. This also applies for Canadian tourists, and they can do it without a border crossing card or a tourist visa in their passport. After day 180, you will have 1 day of unlawful presence, unless you submitted your green card application before day 180. Most people who enter as tourists do not apply for their adjustment of status before day 180. So there's some risk involved there, because they're deportable after day 180 unless they have an adjustment of status application pending, in which case they'll be lawfully present while that application is pending, and hopefully it gets approved. If it gets approved, then they're good to go. If it gets denied, they might be retroactively out of status from when that 180-day tourist duration of stay expired. So something to keep in mind, there are risks involved here. When you enter as a tourist, generally speaking, you don't want to apply or take any action within the first 90 days that suggests that your intent is to permanently reside in the US. So between day 90 and 180 is the sweet spot for most tourists to apply for permanent residence, but it's fact specific. That doesn't apply to everyone, but it's just something I generally explain to people during our consultations. The bigger complication comes when you enter on an ESTA, like you're from a European country that doesn't require a B1, B2 visa, because ESTA gives you less protections, offers fewer protections to immigrants that are using it. With ESTA, you can enter the US for up to 90 days. You don't need a visa. You just apply for ESTA authorization online, and it's usually like super quick and pretty liberally granted to most European nationals. It's a pretty easy way to travel to the US. But the problem with ESTA is on day 91, you're deportable, fully deportable. You don't have a right to see a judge. You're subject to summary deportation. Now, in reality, I don't really see Europeans getting deported. I'm sure it happens on a rare case-by-case basis. Some guy just has bad luck and encounters an ICE officer on the street. We really see targeted ICE operations going after non-Europeans for the most part. I don't have hard facts to support that other than just my anecdotal experience, but it seems to be the case. The danger here is for Europeans who want to marry their US citizen significant other. If they apply for adjustment of status after day 90, they run the risk of being detained. If they apply for adjustment of status before day 90, they run the risk of the government alleging that they entered with fraudulent intent. So when people enter on ESTAs, I have like a very specific considerations that we go through to create the best strategy for you. We usually talk about like what your travel plans are, what your timeline looks like, and then we decide whether it's best to submit the adjustment of status application before that 90 days or after, and we come to a case-by-case assessment based on the risks that you're comfortable with and what's best for you and your family. The other major thing that people need to keep in mind is that USCIS no longer has to issue requests for evidence to fix minor issues with your adjustment of status application. This combined with the new deportation policy for denied application makes the stakes really high when you're submitting a green card application. Ordinarily, under normal circumstances, I would say if you spend enough time and you read all the instructions, you could submit these applications by yourself. You don't have to spend the $3 or $4 grand on a lawyer to do it for you. But given how serious the situation has become, the government doesn't have to give you an opportunity to fix minor mistakes. And if they deny it because of a minor mistake and they place you into deportation proceedings, you might easily see a $10,000 legal bill added to that initial $3,000 to $4,000 that you would have spent if you had hired a lawyer to start with. By the way, guys, I still see people submitting their applications by themselves. Many applications still get approved. I'm not saying you can't do it. You definitely still can. In fact, hiring a lawyer will not guarantee your case gets approved. If you and a lawyer submit the exact same application, they're going to be treated exactly the same. It doesn't actually make a difference whether or not you have a lawyer. But if a lawyer helps you avoid mistakes, that could have a dramatic impact on your case. All right, guys, so back to the first question that we asked in this video. Can you still adjust status if you enter the US as a tourist? The answer is a resounding yes. I do this all the time. I submit several of these applications each week. So if you want to speak to an attorney who's experienced in these family-based immigration cases, schedule a consultation directly with me, Puyan Darian. You can find my direct booking link in the video description below. I would love to speak to you to create a strategy or to represent you fully in your case depending on what your needs are. If you want to stay up to date on all the recent changes to immigration policy under the Trump administration, or you just want to get an interesting perspective from an immigration lawyer's point of view, be sure to subscribe to my channel. I put out several videos each week trying to keep you guys informed on the recent immigration changes. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time for another video.